Making chains for rendering is pretty simple in version 6. I'm going to kind of walk you through the process. And it's very similar. It actually uses the same functionality as the gem on curve. So I'm just going to start with a curve out here on screen. And your curve can be any shape. It can be a complex curve that you've projected onto a bust for rendering purposes, but the concept behind making chains is really simple. You want to start with a curve, and I'm going to use the F6 button and use the gem on curve or object on curve buttons. They both kind of lead you to the same place. So as soon as you see your gems pop up, you still have your handles to adjust the space and the distance between the stones, the spacing and the size of the stones, I'm sorry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to the command line, and there's an option here for object type. And if I click on this option object type, I come up with some sub options. I could change this to round gems, select gems, spheres for mill grain. So if I wanted to mill grain the edge of a piece, you can always use the object on curve, or I could use the browser button. And if I click the browser button, it opens up a library of parts that we've already created for you. And some of these could be used for chains. So like for example, we've got a curb link here. I'll go ahead and load that, and you'll see what's happening here on screen. And you can adjust the spacing to get the appropriate spacing so it's interlocking chains or interlocking links. And it's as simple as that. There is another trick here, because you may want to use an object that is not in our library. So if in that case, like for example, I've got a Figaro chain that I made. If I want to use this link on this line, no problem. You can use your own objects. Actually, I want to use the other one. Yeah, this one's flattened. So if I want to use this chain on this curve, I simply start the gem on curve command again, click on the curve, and either go to your gem on curve, and input this curve into the window, or I find it easier, F6, gem on curve, gem type, and here on this option, instead of using browser, use object. Then it's going to prompt you to select the objects to place on the curve. That's when you can grab your chain finding, something that you've created here, and press enter. It's going to place it there on your curve, and you can just come in and make the adjustments that you need. To make your chain. It's a pretty simple thing to do. Now, there are a couple of tricks I'll just tell you about. If the orientation of this piece at F4 determines how it comes out on this line. When we were working on this tool, I kind of started playing around with it a little bit, and I started making some findings. Let me see here. Some repeating pattern findings. So here's one that I have in my job bag. One direction's this way and one direction's this way, and you'll see the difference here. Gem on curve, object type, object, grab your object, press enter, and you can see with the orientation vertical in the looking down viewport, that it matches up like this in this orientation. Okay. However, with this same finding, sometimes these group prongs together, so you have to come in here and ungroup to delete just the ones that you don't want. Here's that same finding in the opposite orientation. So, and just with some end caps on it, some blended caps. So we will go, again, F6, object on curve, object type, object, you guys, enter. So you can see what happened. It's exactly the opposite. So if for some reason it's coming out the wrong way, you can just rotate around F4 in the looking down viewport and change the orientation of the object. The only other trick that I've found with this is you need to make sure that you have your green color layers on, especially if you're using one of our objects from the browser, because those are all created on a green color layer. I've had this happen where say I'll come down here to the blue color layer and I'm going to toggle all of these off. So if I come in here and go F6, gem on curve, object type, browser, and choose one of these objects for the browser, nothing happens, okay? It just keeps rejecting me. But if I toggle these back on, there's our objects we had, and now it's like, oh my God, you know, I have all this information that was hidden and now, or was turned off and now is being turned on. So you always just want to make sure if you're going to use our browser that you toggle these to the on position. And actually it might be that if you're going to use this tool at all, you need to have these on. So I just always make sure that I've got the green color layers on. And I hope that helps with your chain making skills. It's pretty simple. I can post some of the things that I've got in here in this job bag as well.